If they fleep and you don't respond with a floop, you're basically all in on the haystack. By that, I mean you can never extend again because they respond with a big dumpy. Why is it always a big dumpy with you? Somehow there's always a big dumpy worked into these. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. It's Sunday night, and we're going to be doing a truncated viewer game breakdown stream. We're probably going to have to take a peek at some of the higher level games on the ladder, because now we are into the season and can more easily find who's actually climbed all the way up to Mount Ego, at least at this stage. But we do have our new Phobies. We do have some cool plays on deck. Let's get into it. And before we actually dive in, as always, I of course have to let everybody know that I am part of the content affiliate program. That means the Phobies team does in fact give me coffee for producing Phobies content. I want to let everybody know at the start so they know what they're getting themselves into. Let's get into some games. What's going on, chat? How you doing? Master Dark, what's good? Personally playing Deep Rock Galactic with my friend. Had some fun moments while killing some glyphids. Is that what the bugs are called? I haven't played that game in a while. Deep Rock, I mean. Oh yeah, we also got the new maps. Now the new maps. I need to add these to the search channel. I'm very curious what the rotation's going to be because, of course, we have Fright Night coming up. I have Fright Night coming up this weekend. By the time this video goes live, Fright Night will be probably under 24 hours away. And yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I actually, as you can tell, have not gotten the opportunity to play, so we'll see how it goes. Less happy about a new one. Hall of Mirrors doesn't really look... I don't know which one that is. I have no idea which map that is. Oh, this one. So this map apparently has a bug. Or not a bug, but an error. Where... I think it's player 2's vault is supposed to be inverted, so that it's symmetrical. Or I guess you could invert player 1 and it would be symmetrical as well, then. Okay. I get it. I do get it. And I think that Phobies is, you know, it of course is predicated on the premise that the maps are, wow, there really are a lot of sales. We didn't talk about it this time around, but Phobies is predicated on the idea that the maps are symmetrical, and it is important, but I don't know that I care. I only kind of care. I only kind of care. All right. I don't know why I got out of the menu, because we need to go in here, chat. Starting off the night on Transaction Declined with Potenzia 2 as our hero. Dog. Deg, if you will. It is the only note, monosyllabic in the notes. So we'll see what happens here. This map looks atrocious. This map is interesting. There are some very interesting plays that we've seen up to this point, but it is still very young in the lifespan of, well, the map as a whole, realistically. Now, this is an interesting play here. Instead of trying to counter the top up here, just sliding this in so that way you could threaten the kill on the enemy cassowary. It's interesting that bad guy chose not to leap onto the cowbell, just to push some damage, because you could leap and then walk away. You could leap and then walk away. But we are, speaking of this, of interesting strategies, this is starting to come to fruition. Hydras on this map do seem to be, quote-unquote, a thing. And, in fact, our hero is doing the thing. Speaking of things, we got a Tooth Fairy on the board, and that's a creepy buddy. Oh, this is a level 1. This is a level 1. All right, let's see. So, yeah, we get the Hydra going. Do I got any grapes? You know, it's funny. I legitimately heard that song / skit a few hours ago. Atona. It randomly came up. Yeah, that was kind of adorable. Hydra's always good if you play it right. I disagree. I don't think Hydra's very good very often. Most of the time, Hydra is very readily countered. And yes, you could say, oh, well, then just play it right. But the thing is that in order to play it right, you offer your opponent an enormous amount of opportunities to address it. Now, on this map, again, we haven't seen a lot of this map. It is structured differently compared to what people typically, or when people typically use Hydra. And that is namely on, say, Biff's room. Or a couple of the other small maps where you can get on top of the heart, you can control a lot of space relatively easily, use it as a tank, follow up with ranged guys, often innocuous or otherwise. But here, our hero's going for the big slap action, dropping in Cerberus to support the Hydra. Now, Bloat did come out of Bad Guy, but Bad Guy is in fact maxed out. Is choosing not to play it, playing it right, though? That may be accurate. It depends on a few different things, but yeah, often not playing is the only way to win. Playing well, a Phobie was enough to always win. It would be a complete mess. I'm trying to parse that statement. Like, I understand what you're trying to say, but at the same time, I'm not sure I can, like... I feel like we're splitting hairs on what counts or doesn't count here for some of this. So once again, as we saw in the past, getting back to the actual gameplay here, as we've seen before, Hydra is able to soak an enormous amount of hits. And while Hydra did not push seemingly a ton of damage, 2-to-1 panic point advantage, a little bit of hard health gain, and of course, getting some takedowns here. Ooh, Hematic stare down here. So at this point, we're looking at Bloat, Cassowary, Cowbell. Hydra, Cassowary, Cowbell. Fairly even, of course, a key deficit for our hero here. But that is, of course, also a Cerberus that's about to find the enemy heart become a chew toy. I was trying to think of a dog phrase quickly enough, chat, but I'm really tired in case you couldn't tell, so. We almost didn't have a stream tonight because I was debating between just resting. We're going to get in a few games. We'll get in a few games, we'll look at some of the higher ladder plays, and then kind of go from there. Now, here's the thing. Before this Cerberus really puts in some work, this is already 3,100 health on the heart remaining. This is a lot of damage. This repositioning is actually pretty cool here. Why is this cool? Well, it prevents the Jin Sting from getting 2 hits, so it's not like you can go multi-hit from Tooth Fairy, multi-hit from Jin Sting, multi-hit from Hevo. Oh, by the way, your Cerberus is dead. Instead, it's going to have to land on this Jin Sting here, which may also die. But if you sink the energy in eliminating the Jin Sting, it's similar to what we saw moments ago with the Hydra. Your opponent's expending an enormous amount of resources to deal with a singular threat, and you still left the other one on the board. And hilariously enough, our hero is able to cap a point on their opponent's turn. You love it when that happens, right? Ooh, not even going for the heart, and honestly, it feels like that should have been the play here. Can you kill this? Okay, so the thought process here may be to leech some life. But with 1,600 health, I just punch the heart. Go for it. I don't think there's any way your opponent can chew through this amount of HP and body block everything out. We're about to find out. Tooth Fairy is so delightfully unsettling. But yeah, unfortunately, we're bad guy here. The big melee phobies get there. This is not something that you commonly see in a lot of scenarios. Melee phobies are inherently worse. The lack of range just brings a slew of negatives attached to it. But in this case, they managed to carry the day, so GG, Potenzio. Well done. Bro, walk the dog all the way to a W? True. It's true. And it's not something that happens a lot, right? It's not something that happens a lot. Oh, 1 second, chat. Something funny when I asked in the Discord if you would stream and he indicated responded opening the stream 7 minutes after. It happens. Alright. Next up in the docket. Yeah, chat, like I was saying, we probably won't have too long of a stream tonight. I'm just really tired, so I wasn't planning on streaming as I did announce Master Dark. I did literally make an @everyone announcement in Discord. I announce when the streams are going to happen or not, or well, really when they're not, so keep an eye out for those. But, housekeeping aside, Bingus, our hero here, absolute destruction. Alright. Is Bingus been in the... Sorry, getting a ping in Discord for something unrelated. Oh boy. Sometimes. Alright. Interesting opener here from our hero. I didn't catch the stress levels zoning in, and that's part of the reason why I was asking if we've had Bingus on stream before. I don't recall. Have I ever played Gwent? Yes, I used to stream it. Not a lot, but I used to stream it. I think Gwent is a pretty cool but exceptionally boring game. Mostly because I just never was... Like, I never played The Witcher, so I had no attachment to it. I think that I love it conceptually, but the problem I always had with Gwent is that it never felt like anything I was doing mattered. Almost all the plays, given a certain matchup kind of thing, were like, this has to happen this way. And it just came down to, is somebody running arbitrary tech card, which they would have no reason to run, but will blow you out because they decided they just wanted to beat your deck that day, is what it felt like in a lot of scenarios. Obviously, that isn't always true, but that was my major takeaway and why I didn't play Gwent a ton. Other than that, I thought it was great because it's a highly deterministic card game. So in the meantime, we do have a little giggles action happening. The bigger brother, if you will, of Bowmangles. Followed up with Erratic. That's fair, a lot of decks don't have enough individuality. I think they do when you separate certain factions. So, like, if you look at Faction A versus Faction B in Gwent, they do have wildly different structures. They have wildly different game plans. But it did feel like if your opponent happens to metagame against your particular game plan, it was basically unwinnable because things were so deterministic. It was very difficult to outplay something that they were both very, very likely to see and was so brutally backbreaking. That was the major issue for me. Get a little noxious action. Bad guy here is almost on the full undead train with Stairmaster. Paddles? I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand the paddles here. Like, you're gonna charge the Erratic in to get on Giggles? I don't get this one, chat. This one kind of mystifies me a bit. Bad guy just, I don't know, sacrificing board position here? Paddles feels like a primal game plan. I mean, I think paddles can work at higher levels. I don't know if that's what you're saying, Master Dark. I don't think that it's, oh, well, there's a paddles on the board, so it has to be a low-level game. And there are kind of phobies that fit into that category, unless we have a high-level player memeing. I think there's legitimate times for paddles. The use of it like that seems low-level. Well, there's just no... I kind of agree with that, because it feels as though there's no foresight here. Into, like, what is the purpose of the paddles? It's doing nothing. Now, what the irony here is, if the paddles, maybe the play would have changed significantly, but, like, this only has 400 health. If there was another, say it was Snowball. Snowball, it would kind of have to be Snowball, right? No, otherwise because Erratic was here. I guess you could, like, crack this and then move something up. Point is that it would be very difficult to orchestrate another phobia hitting this Erratic, but as you can see, instead, yeah, not only does the erratic live, bad guy has now offered up their entire team on a silver platter. It's just... it doesn't feel good. At least if you're bad guy. If you're our hero, you're feeling spectacular right now. Giggles putting in work. Down goes Stairmaster. Not even bothering with the poison because guess what? Primate number 9. I'm num erratic. Yep. Yep. Still 17 keys remaining for bad guy, but a 5-1 panic point advantage. That's a high 5. I think bad guy's kind of thrown in the towel here. The weird squishy noise that Jin Sting makes when it walks is very funny to me. I don't know why it's so amusing to me, but it is. And at this point, there's just nothing bad guy can do. I mean, their response was whatever. The game was over on this turn with the invade. This is why, and I'll keep repeating it because we get into these scenarios. There's an argument to not allow surrenders so that players that lose in this scenario can then, or even if you're winning, you have to know to secure the end state or recover. You know, like, it's very easy from a winning position to go, oh, well, there's no way I can lose this game. You should just surrender. And then if everybody surrenders, you get the win until somebody doesn't, and then you throw because you don't actually know how to close the game. However, there's enough games that we've seen where it's like, no, there's just no chance. Save us a few minutes. Not just save us a few minutes, but also give me the resources. Don't steal them from me. Told you I was tired, chat. GG. Yeah. Bingus, everyone. Bingus. There's really not much to say to that one. GG. And yet another quick game. This time from Dino Nuggy. The irony of dinosaur nuggets coming from birds, which are dinosaurs. There's like 80 layers to this this entire catastrophe. But in this case, Heart Rush is so nice just because you don't really have too much. What? I mean, I know what's intended or like what's trying to be stated here, but it's just funny because I'm tired. And therefore it makes the odd grammar of and sometimes just typos of the notes stand out more to me. So this block in the north is very interesting from this Gravedigger because, yes, it sort of protects this, but at the same time, it's not... It's kind of trivial effort to remove it if bad guy really wants to. But we are getting the 4-0 panic point advantage. Body blocking the Cyclops, which is good heads-up play. Obviously, it could have slid somewhere, reclaim a point, as well as hit. You wanted the thumbnail from this game? I mean, this seems pretty stock standard so far. For the most part. I mean, maybe something weird will hit the board soon, but... I guess the way the game is playing out isn't necessarily bog standard, but at the same time, we're not looking at anything so wildly out of the ordinary as to confuse everybody. Getting some pressure on that Cyclops. I was a little surprised at this. Ooh, little squiggles. Level 9, huh? Level 7 squiggles. Squiggles kind of looks like it has candy canes for legs. The good old candy cane legs. Oh, I see what you mean, Master Dark. Yeah. We're not going to get... I'm not going to do 85 Potenza games, even though they were all submitted. We'll do probably 1, maybe 2 more after we get through the others, but I'm not doing, like, all 30 million of them that were submitted. Pop goes the squiggles. Yeah, a lot of pressure on this heart. Bad guy just, I don't know what, like, their phobie choices have been arguably nonsensical. Certainly their positioning. This block here is just, I guess bad guy didn't have the time to really address it. Welcome to the Potensia Power Hour, officially sponsored by Potensia. It has a ring to it. Ooh, with the blinky block. We've actually seen 2 games of Baby Snakey tonight thus far, chat. That is absolutely abnormal. It's actually fascinating how this game has gone down, such that pretty much every turn, bad guy has had to push up, overextend, and go, hey, I need to not die, so I cap these points. However, at every turn, Dino Nuggy has managed to just keep applying 4 panic point pressure. How many turns this game did they have all 4 panic points? Spoiler alert, it was a lot. And as a result, we draw the concession with 273 health left on the heart. GG. Well played. Yeah, just kind of shredding people there. A little bit of shredding. Alright, chat. Let's take a look at Master Dark's game. We'll probably do one Potensia game after that. And then maybe another Dino Nuggy, and then try and look up some higher ladder ones. Fill the gaps with the other games. In this case, Master Dark. This might sting a little. My fresh new phobie from last season pack versus the most out of situation Heartbreaker. This doesn't feel like it's a bad Heartbreaker map. It's not great. It's not great because it's not that you can't immediately kill something, but it is going to be more challenging than you typically expect. Because it is relatively simple to set up a concave such that the Heartbreaker is going to have to, like, way overextend in order to get something. Possibly, and then your opponent can sort of defend the panic points. But you could absolutely bully somebody with a Heartbreaker. This is one of those maps where the threat of Heartbreaker is almost better than the actual activation of Heartbreaker. You'll understand why I said that, but just imagine how bad it is against a Heart Rush. Yeah, Heartbreaker, well, Heartbreaker could do okay, but this is somewhat of a Heart Rushy map. This is definitely a map where I've won and lost games by initiating / being incapable of defending a hard push. And it actually can be somewhat surprising how quickly it can happen, where just all of a sudden they're on my heart and I can't defend because, you know, if you're, say, player 1, you're up here, like in Master Dark, if you're in top left, and then they swing through the south here, and you have to try and defend, your own terrain is body blocking you out. They might have control of the stim. It's very difficult to initiate that sort of invade. Little brony action. This must be what Master Dark... Yeah, level 4 brony. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that is what Master Dark picked up last season. Brony, of course, perennial favorite on the stream. You know who we have? Like... Alien Engineer was the master of Brony for a very long time. Always making cool plays. The bad guy with the Gravedigger breaking the 1 block so that Stabby has a quicker run, I guess. Sure. We got mirrored daisies going on. You love to see it. Minor panic point advantage for our hero. However, the Brony, of course, is going to initiate some really uncomfortable positionings. Bad guy, I don't think that's what you want to do. Okay, that makes more sense. Makes more sense. However, notably, well, these can reach pretty far. The brony. Good lord. Alright, so what does bad guy do here? You can, of course, off one of these phobies. You can do it safely. The Heartbreaker, of course. And then recollapse in. But what one are they going to choose? Because if it's not brony, you're getting your team turned off, and you're going to have a bad day. There is a potential to just outright kill this. I guess. Is this not live? They have one more turn. That hurts. That's actually... Oh, no. What? No, not like this. Not like this. Baby, what is you doing? Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bad guy is maxed out. I think I'm going to use the brony for the thumbnail, to be perfectly honest. At least thus far. Yeah. You're about to get bronied. You're about to get bronied. And, like... This just... It hurts to look at. It hurts to look at. I actually like the gargles here just to lock things up. I mean, look at this. How does bad guy defend against this? You're just dead right now. I mean, we know there's only 2 turns left, but, like, you are literally just dead. You can't recover any panic points. You have 2 phobies that can interact. Well, I guess technically you can Heartbreak or something, but because of the positioning in the brony, you can't even get there to fling something. Well, I guess you can. You can to a degree, because you can, of course, move up here with the Heartbreaker. Taking down the squiggles, honestly, that's probably the correct choice. Realistically, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, chat, this map is way more aggressive than people really understand. You can very easily threaten a heart push here, and despite bad guy actually clearing out some of these obstacles so you could defend a little bit better, you do get bullied by the brony. And I mean, I guess that's all she wrote. Brony worked really well on Morbidity too. Brony, I feel... I mean, we had some games against Alien Engineer and other people where Brony performs really well on Scoposium, another map which can be shockingly heart-pushy. I'm not surprised to see Brony do well here. Brony is great if it's a heart-push map, because you can just, oops, I turned off your team, I'm going to light up your heart and there's nothing you can do about it. It seems pretty good. Seems alright. GG. Alright, chat, since we had the patches over the last couple of weeks, we of course have broken the queue a bit. So, with the shorter list, we do have some repeats tonight. Dino Nuggy is our first repeat up. Give me one more round and I would have won this game. Alright, I didn't see that it was a loss for our hero here when we zoned in, because I was looking at chat. We'll see how this goes. Once again, on transaction, declined. Somebody in chat was saying they don't like this map, which I just don't have an opinion on it yet. It does seem to me, overall, that this is one of, if not the best patch as far as maps go. Introducing new strategies, creating new options. It definitely seems way better than many of the alternatives that we've had in previous patches. Now, in this case, we get a fairly aggressive opener here with the Gravedigger trying to block this out. While I can appreciate, I'm just pausing it, even though we see a Spud, which is not the response I would have thought of. Although, yeah, this kind of makes sense. One thing that I was going to say is you could quite trivially just send your own Gravedigger and pop this. However, the Boom and the Cassowary are not going to be enough damage to kill this. In other words, you'll never run it down after that. Well, maybe not never, but you're not going to run it down. So, I guess Spud is fine? Spud seems like it might be good on this map in general. Brony is good at any point if on a Heart Rush map. It can still be okay in a not Heart Rush game. Yes. Like a delayed 43 turn game on Step Right Up where I just had to keep the enemy, keep powering the enemy down, just to spam them with traps. That's one way to do it. All right, Dino Nuggy going up 2-1 once again on the panic points, keeping the 1 keys up and running here, just to ensure that you have what you need. 1, 2, 3. It is possible to kill this, I think. Depending on what the snowball level is, I feel like bad guy could have sniped this snowball. Sniped our hero's snowball, that is. Huh. Come on, game. This should just die. You just pop out a jar, right? Tired math is the worst math? I mean, yeah. Alright, Master Dark, thanks for hanging out. Have a good night. Yeah, this is just a dead cassowary. I don't understand. This is once again, like, that earlier game that we watched where bad guy went in and just sacrificed, like, their entire team because they didn't even accomplish removing something from the board. It's kind of what this felt like, just to a smaller scale. Because, of course, it was only the cassowary, but it's like, why? Why send in the cassowary to damage something when it's just going to die? The only excuse I can think of is that bad guy just wasn't thinking about a jar being in range, but that's one of those things, jar and snowball, that just kind of have to know that what can kill me from this position? Jar and snowball, those are fairly common. Bad guy following up on an erratic. Let's see what our dinosaur hero has in store. This once again seems like a aggressive error. Yes. All right, we're going to pick the Spud. This is actually hilarious. Because you moved up to Fireball, it actually pushes it out of the way so it can't get double hit by the erratic. Would you make that play anyway? Probably. But it is cute that it got saved. Pop goes the Gravedigger. The jar does live, but our hero just quite simply doesn't have enough damage at the moment to really threaten anything at this point. Bad guy's going to be able to push in with the erratic with relative impunity. We get a sheep, which every time there's an erratic, nearly every time there's an erratic, people try and answer with sheep. I'm just never really a fan. And on this map in particular, it feels as though you can probably get your opponent to bunch up over and over again, such that the erratic can then continue to get multi-hits. And oh no! Cupcake chat? Wait, what? Alright, Dino Nuggy is presumably going to go for this, is sheep hit? I like the Innoculus. I would have liked to have seen the Innoculus earlier in the game. It feels like Innoculus can help control a lot of space here, as it does. Now, we of course get the sheep hit here. But if we don't get a dead erratic, which we're not going to, I don't think this erratic dies. And here's the other challenge. So bad guy is up on keys, arguably up on board position, certainly after this goes down. And all of a sudden, a whole lot of health comes back to that erratic, and it's bad news bears for our hero. Raucous is the final phobie. Too scared to fight me on scene. Wait, Command and Conquer? Did you see Tempest Rising, Luffy? Apparently it's similar to Command and Conquer. I never really liked those as RTSs. So this is likely a dead jar, but there's no way for our hero to crack this, is the problem. Oh, Cards and Castles. Well, I'll be streaming it tomorrow. Okay, I take it back. Is this erratic just dead? Well, the erratic's going to die to the fire. Oh, no! Wow, that sucks. The jar lives. I just assumed it was dead. I didn't even look at it again. Erratic is down, but panic point advantage, bad guy. Of course, things are already in position. Completely unnecessary. Yeah, absolutely one more turn and you get it. I didn't like the sheep as an answer here. I just don't think you're ever going to do what you need to do. Like, you got the hit on it, and it kind of didn't matter. Now, there's an argument that if bad guy did not have Cupcake, you'd be okay. However, putting aside for the moment that you kind of always have to assume that everybody has everything. Like, they always have the option for the thing, in this case, Cupcake. It could be a heal, it could be a boop, it could be a yoink, it could be whatever, but in this case, it was Cupcake. I just don't think the response to Erratic was very good. Believe it or not, I actually like things such as Repeller as a decent response, just because you can boop the Erratic. They have to then march it back into your team. If they don't, it gives time for the Repeller to get its cooldown back. And then when it recommits, either immediately or later on, you jump it. The problem is that is a very downhill strategy. And by that, I mean, I do want to do some videos for like beginner terminology and stuff. In this case, it's a downhill strategy where you're playing from the bully position as the Repeller into Erratic. If you have to fight from behind, that means you need to go to them. And because of that, you're going to end up losing a ton of stuff. You don't want a paper-thin Phobie to be your point man. But you clearly needed more damage. Admittedly, some of this was due to levels, because if you had sniped that jar, you probably live. If you were able to kill a couple of other things one turn sooner, you would have been fine. But I think there was the Erratic, it had to die a turn sooner. And I don't think you were equipped to do that. Partially because that Inoculus came out late, partially because you invested in sheep. And in this case, given the tight confines of this map, the fact that you hit it with sheep, A, they're still on your heart, and B, even if they weren't, there's going to be a bunch of other Phobies around for the Erratic to leech from. And probably via chains, so... Either way, GG, and shout out to Dino Nuggy for submitting a loss. We don't often get those. Of course, everybody wants their name up in lights. So shout out when you're willing to put yourself out there like that. If they fleep and you don't respond with a floop, you're basically all in on the haystack. By that, I mean you can never extend again because they respond with a big dumpy. Why is it always a big dumpy with you? Somehow there's always a big dumpy worked into these. A big old dumpy. You know, I was playing some Mew Genesect offline today. Speaking of big dumpies. I was completing dailies. I don't know, it sounds like Phobie speak. I mean, Fleep and Floop definitely sound like they could be Phobie names. And they would be like a pairing of Phobies that came out in their palette swaps or something. Haystack could literally be a Phobie. I could absolutely see that. Big Dumpy might be where it verges into territory of, nah, that's not going to happen. All right. Longer game here from Potenzia. As mentioned, we had a couple of repeats because the queue has shrunk down thanks to the patches breaking a whole lot of games. But there will be a lot more games to look at. If you're interested in submitting your own games, you can, of course, hit up the Random Slots Discord. That's where you'll find the submission sheet and also where you'll get the first news about Bright Night. Bright Night, of course, is coming up at by the time this goes live, it'll be tomorrow. But at the end of this week, we actually have max participants. If you're still interested in playing, you can, of course, put your name in on the wait list. Not making any promises, first come, first served basis, but there is the potential anyway. I played a bit more Warpforge, and I think I've determined it's pretty bad. Eldari seems the least random, and both of their board clears are semi-random. I think 100% of the board clears in the game are random. They have an element of deal between X and Y damage. There might be one that's just, okay, just kill everything on the board, but it costs like $1 billion. They absolutely lean into that stuff. I think there's just, they do a lot of cool things that does emphasize the digital nature, which to me is both important and unique. The problem is they do absolutely drag it down with, lol, let's have random on random. Yo, dog, I heard you like random, so we put random in your random so you can random while you random. It's like, no. In fact, I hate that. Let's not do that. Ooh, bad guy. Speaking of things that are not random, a tractor out of our hero is answered by Zappy from our bad guy. Let's see how well they can do this positional battle. I never actually read the notes for this. While Akira on large maps is probably the most broken phobia in the game, on small maps, it seems balanced all right. Is it, though? Is it, though? Now, I've said this before. I don't know that Akira is as broken as people claim it to be. Although there are people who seem to think that it's either perfectly fine or even bad, and neither of those things are true. I don't think that I'm pausing for a moment because I was considering, like, well, why didn't they Zappy on the stem? Okay, so I think the last couple of turns have been played strangely by bad guy. They could have pushed up with these pretty safely. Yes, this could have come in, but there wasn't, like, such an enormous amount of damage that I think our hero could snipe it. Maybe 15, 13. Actually, they might have been able to. Maybe bad guy can't push up here. But I feel like they needed to, because then on this turn, they could have threatened, hey, my whole team is here. I'm going to go in with Zappy on the top, deal a ton of damage here, probably kill something in conjunction with these, because imagine if they were up one and they could move up. Maybe they could never position there to begin with, but it feels like there's some missed opportunities to be had here. But as far as Akira goes, I don't know that it's as broken as people claim it to be. However, yeah, this was just going to happen anyway, bad guy, so... Alright, so Akira thought, and then I'll explain what's going on here. So, I don't think Akira is as broken as people are claiming, but it's still broken, and even if it is not, I think it is problematic for the game from a game design perspective. You often hear this in card games where it cuts off future design. It causes future design problems. It limits design. All of these things boil down to saying, hey, this thing that we created, or we're intending to create, it sets the bar at a certain level that you cannot exceed it without actually breaking the game. Or it may already have broken the game by warping things. Maybe not breaking the game is the right way to put it, but it warps it to such an unhealthy degree. And I think that's what Akira does. It creates unfun board states to such an extreme, exceptional position that it just doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, it can be beaten. You can outplay the Akira player. Unless you're an async, in which case, I don't know what the hell you do, to be honest. But the biggest thing for Akira is that its animation is so long. That's the drawback. And that's not a very good one. So as far as this play goes, because Bad Guy had never pushed up previously, they left themselves open and isolated, because look at this, literally half their team right now is out of the fight and won't be in the fight anytime soon. So that means that this Stabby's dead. Most likely the Corn lives, but I mean, I guess it's not impossible. Now, you'd be surprised, Warhammer is really popular. Although, I don't know what the mobile game status of Warforged is. However, that wouldn't directly show in Steam charts, as far as I know. So, like, that wouldn't affect the numbers there. But it would matter overall, because then if there's more players in general, more people on Steam would be willing to stick around, I presume. So here we are, panic point advantage for our hero. The big monster itself, Akira, is shown up. Still 5 keys remaining for our hero, 0 keys remaining for our hero, but they did basically make the appropriate play here. What did they do? They went with big, tanky stuff. Yes, Zappy's on the board, so I'm not super enthusiastic about the Hydra, but it does net you Hydra Snot Monster. This allows you to get the attractor set up again. You're, of course, protecting everything behind the obstacles. And Bad Guy just, they need our hero to step into a bad position so they can get yoinked and then blown up in an efficient manner. If Bad Guy has to commit in order to make this happen, it's not really going to happen. Also, Warforged is a lot less buggy than DC Dual Force. How many people play DC Dual Force for an hour, hit a bug, then don't play again? I would imagine a significant number. I don't... We'll have to see. I'm very curious about the economic model for Warforged. I haven't really looked at it. We do get the yoinks. We get a spectacular hit. However, you take down Bo, leaving 4 Phobies to 4 Phobies. But that's not enough. That's not dead stuff. It's very damaged, but it's not dead. And we do, in fact, get the yoinks here. This allows double hits from the melee Phobies. Hilariously enough, the counter hit kills the attractor, but it's probably going to be worth it when this other stuff goes down. A bold move there. Of course, the jar can die to the unicorn. Presumably the Hydra. Oh, no. Okay, so the math did not work out for Bad Guy here. Requiring 3 hits, which means that the jar lives. If you were able to take out both of these as Bad Guy, the game flips into your favor. But in this particular case, not so much. And we still have 10 turns left for the record. But it's 2 Phobies to 1. Unless they snipe here. Why? Okay, so there's a few thoughts here. Bad Guy could have moved to any of a number of positions in order to kill the jar right now. They elected instead to take the stim. Now, I think that what's going through Bad Guy's head is the Quagmire is going to slide behind here, and then you never dislodge it. Between its own heal and the healing spa, you're just not killing it quickly enough when you get there. And if you have to chase that down, that means that the jar is alive. What they could have done is, instead of sliding down here, they take the center panic point, kill the jar, and then come back and try and fight the Quagmire. I don't know that they can win that race, but this doesn't look great. If you have a single Phobie, especially a one-mover, and you leave your opponent with multiple Phobies like this, it's just not a good situation. And now Bad Guys, damned if they do, damned if they don't. They're down panic points. They can't cap them readily. They can't get back here to fight the mucus monster. The writing's on the wall for this one. I think another thing Akira does that may be problematic is it breaks earned board states that work all the way up until you start running into Akira. Then your expectations to what the game actually is have to ship, which is a huge adjustment to make. I absolutely agree for multiple reasons. So starting with the last part, I don't think the last part is necessarily problematic because there are other phobies such as Snowball, which dramatically change the gameplay experience the second that they are available to a player. Like, as soon as you get Snowball, the game changes immediately. And there are other phobies, whether it's Clinico, just because you didn't have a healing phobie, it's Miss Moffat because it's your first yoink. There's a ton of effects that are like, hey, the game is just different now. And generally, they are in positive ways. However, in conjunction with the first part, where Akira, because it fundamentally changes how games are played and the expectations, it breaks a lot of rules tied to what Atone is saying, which are the earned board states. If you have meticulously worked to outposition your opponent and then they slam an Akira and go surprise, you either full retreat right now or I'm going to wipe out your entire team. Like, it doesn't feel good. And it's wipe out your entire team no matter where you are. The fact that Akira bypasses the map is problematic. Now here, I don't think this really had anything to do with Akira, although statistically it's going to be a loss registered for Akira. I think bad guy just deployed, like the timing was just wrong. Like, and it wasn't a matter of, oh, well, I made a bad yoink. It wasn't great, but like the bigger issue is the timing in which it was deployed. I still think bad guy could have positioned it better anyway, given what they had. The lead up, if you knew you were going to go to Akira, you need to guard certain aspects of the game, aka don't fall behind, both in board position and life total so far that you have to make a desperation play. Because it is possible to outplay an Akira player for a few turns, but inevitability is on their side. Eventually, they'll just press the yoinks button and go, oops, you're dead. It's way easier for you to make a positional mistake that is crippling than for the Akira player to, like, forever whiff. It's just not going to happen. But either way, Potenzia takes it down. GG. Back. I think another thing, earn the board say, okay, yeah, I guess it also begs the question, is it not possible to put your opponent into a position where if they play to the board, then play into Akira, their best option is to give up the board somewhat? If they play to the board, they play into Akira. I mean, you can't not play to the board, though. I don't think there's a board state or a game state where you're not playing to the board. And because of Akira's global nature, it doesn't matter whether you try and phobie fight, you try and heart rush, or you try and go for panic points. Akira addresses all three situations, which I think might be a better argument for why Akira needs to be nerfed. You could say, I mean, yes, every phobie could interact with all three phases of the game, but if they are in, so for example, on this map, if the fight was down here in the south, and your opponent committed all of their forces to the south, and then you swung across the top, on this map, they could obviously just slide up and defend, but the point is if you start playing down here, they could play up here, and they have an option to engage or not engage. Akira doesn't care, it just says, no, we're engaging no matter where you are, unless you're like just so far away, you are not in the game. And I mean, as I said before, it's not as though Akira can't be beaten. Akira can absolutely be beaten. We've seen it a ton of times. I've done it. I've lost using Akira. And we watch a lot of games where both sides of it. And yeah, on smaller maps, it is more challenging to leverage the Akira because by definition, you get less keys and then it's only, it's your singular 9 key. And you may just end up losing because I've lost with Hevos. We've beaten Hevos. We've beaten bosses. We've lost a boss. If you pick a big key phobie, it is possible to win or lose just because on a small map, you sunk so much time and so many resources into just deploying it full stop that it almost doesn't matter. Or not that it doesn't matter. That's not a good way to put it. It's that it's just all your eggs in one basket. And it's very easy for your opponent to pull on the threads and unravel the game plan. without necessarily having to interact with the big thing. However, Akira bypasses so many rules of the game that I think even if it were balanced, it still should be changed. And we've seen that in other games where sometimes things aren't broken in the sense that they are overpowered, so they need to be addressed. But they get excised anyway because either they prevent future card design or future game design, they create unfun board states, they devolve the game or bypass parts of the game, which essentially change it into another game that nobody signed up for. And while that other game may still be fair and balanced and whatever, it's not the game people want to play. Now, we only had 2 turns left, but whatever. Speaking of Akira, we're going to zone in, take a look at this game. This was not on our list, but as I said a few times, we had a shorter quantity or smaller quantity of submissions, so we're going to take a look at some of the high ladder games. And both of these players are typically up towards top of the ladder. So we'll see what's going on here on Morbidity. Getting a fairly standard opener here. Murder Wing Cat seems pretty normal. So this is kind of interesting. Claws here went with Unbearable. Why? Well, there's a few different reasons why this could be the case. The initial one that is probably the most obvious is you got these conveyor tiles, so let's slide this thing into the fray much more quickly. It's a one-mover, but it's not quite a one-mover when it's getting free moves. And of course, because it's undead and it's a lobber, you can get it back here. Or they may not even interact with it. They may just stick it right back here, and then it can lob over the center and help defend it. In this case, Trasgo decided to invade and really beat the snot out of this, out of the tickles here, which I do like as a play. No, you don't kill it. Normally, you don't want to just beat something up and then walk away or allow it to walk away. But in this case, it pressures the tickles out of position. Now, what I'm a little surprised is that there wasn't follow-up in order to remove it. The reason being is that forces Claws, and Claws is a strong enough player that they probably wouldn't fall into this trap, but it's possible that you send in Cat, it kills Tickles. They kill the cat. They then have to send the Henrietta in, and you replace with the Contortio. And in the meantime, you were probably gapping these points up here. That means that you will ultimately maintain the center, and you've eliminated your opponent's 1 keys. They'll get rid of yours also, but again, you're ahead there. We actually don't see that, and instead, we get the addition of more 1-key Phobies. Or 1-move Phobies, rather, not 1 keys, sorry. Now, this is really interesting. We're getting a very aggressive push here out of Claws. This is not really what I would have expected. We get this aggressive push, the body block to a degree with Tickles. This allows the Jin Sting to roll up mostly unabated and then threaten both of these. Of course, this is going to get pushed up, and we get the follow-up with Hevo 1.0 from Claws here. Now, the Hevo is somewhat vulnerable. This can hit and run, but it can only hit Hevo or Unbearable. We'll see which one it goes for. Going for the Evo here. No healing spas here to get free regeneration. Only disease. Yep, Tickles goes down without much of a fight. That means that Jin Sting. And this is kind of the issue with the aggressive push here. No, this is not a ton of damage. But a lot of the time, there are games that come down to simply breakpoints. And it's not just, oh, well, their guy survived at 1 health because they have more levels, or my guy was able to kill their guy because I outleveled them. It's, can I ensure that over the course of multiple turns, I'm able to take down that phobia that I can't fully commit onto right now? And in this case, that little bit of chip damage from a meatball here, a unicorn shot there, can mean that you ultimately get there. Now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're actually maxed out on Phobies, but I have to imagine that something from Trasgo's team, our blue player, is going to go down this turn. We're actually getting a Muffin to heal up this Gin Sting, which did, you know, take that meatball, which ultimately, now you eliminated Muffin for freezies. I think most players will take that. Most players are pretty happy with that, where you just take Muffin out of the equation fairly early on in the game. Now, what was a somewhat commanding panic point advantage is now getting leveled out. It's now 4-3. Of course, Henrietta is not long for this world. Everyone's favorite murder bat, Murder Wing, is of course going to eat Henrietta alive. Now we're going to get the trap laying wars between Steve's here and the Unicorn. Super dehydrated, chat. Gotta hydrate up. I meant to get more water while I was on break, but I forgot. So ultimately, after all of those exchanges, we end up with a similar situation as to what I was describing, where Claus is going to temporarily gain control of this. They're going to immediately relinquish it after this turn, because the Bachelor is going to die. The cat's going to... Well, the cat will come in to finish off the Bachelor, and then... Yeah. Panic points go blue once again. Now, we do have a Gonzo added to this team. This is a fair amount of one-movers. We have Gonzo, we have Steves, we have Unbearable as compared to merely Unbearable and Unicorn from Trasgo here, but 16 keys available. Only 14 keys total for Claus. And Claus is down on board position here. Certainly panic points, arguably Phobies as well. It would be a difficult argument to make, but you do need to set stuff up with Steves, and of course, there's no way to know that this trap is here. It's entirely possible that Claus is planning on putting some of them here. Now, we do see Akira coming in. Again, speaking of Akira, this definitely feels like a very powerful or potentially powerful Akira map. You got Abyss tiles, you have places that your opponent does not want to be in, and multiple angles to collapse on things. Now, since that freeze trap went down and was eaten by the Unicorn trap, this positioning for Claus is way less impressive. You can't just go, oops, I froze one of your dudes, I'm going to blow up the rest. Not that Trasgo really would have been in a position for that to happen anyway, given how these Phobies are set up. But we do have Noxious added to the team. That's going to be the 7th Phobie. 0 keys remaining for Claus, 12 for Trasgo. And to be honest, there might be a Akira play right now. All right, not going for it this turn. There was the potential that an Akira could have led to some takedowns, but I think both players are going to be playing chicken with their Akiras for a little bit, simply because the first person to do it has to make sure that it's crippling, because the counter Akira will absolutely be game-ending if the first one didn't crack it open. Here it goes. Unfortunately, not a lot of connections here. Do get the poison alongside the Gonzo to eliminate the 1 key, poisoning both the dimensional and the undead. But remember, Trasgo still has the option of 12 keys. Their Muffin, assuming there is one in their collection, still available. Several Phobies here are still viable. Did end up with a diseased Murder Wing as well. Yep. There is the Muffin. Evo 3.0. Gotta love the Muffin poll. Very clever play here. And now, look at this. Claus is super overextended. Here's the thing about Akira, and I know we've been beating this to death, but Akira, when things like this happen, make you look like an amateur player. We watched a couple games tonight where it's like, well, why did they do that? That makes no sense. Now, imagine if your opponent could force you into a position where you made those plays. That's what Akira does. Because it's like, why would you walk your whole team into Hevo 3.0 in the teeth of their army. Well, you didn't. Akira just put you there. So at this point, we're looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 keys. 9, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Officially or not, that's got to be the ball game, right? Claws is not officially out of it. You, of course, could have some crazy Steve's plays if you manage to freeze the Hevo, for example. They're not thawing it out. Akira, arguably, is not as impressive here because you don't have Yoinks to set it up. This is where nerfs to its stats could be valuable, could be salient, because you just... then it's a useless body after you use the power. But, as it stands currently, big AoE damage going down. Don't even necessarily need big damage. You just need some damage. And oh, by the way, unless there's a freeze trap waiting in the wings here, we have bad things about to happen to Claws. Yeah. So here's the question. Because we're trying to learn here, right? What should Claws have done differently? They set up their Akira, and honestly, it didn't seem like they were in a horrendous position. I think Claws was pretty far behind. Not hugely. Should have gone first. But they got their Akira first. Like, Claws' Akira hit the board first. So going first to get your big nasty out sooner isn't... like, it didn't... would not have directly solved this or changed this materially. What led to Blue having 12 keys left over? They just kind of did not play things to the board. I mean, we can skip ahead to see... wait, what? Alright, so we get an invade to kill Gonzo. The thing is that Hevo did not get frozen, so it gets frozen again. Evo does go down. But ultimately, yeah. We're going to go back in. Because I want to see, like, where exactly was this lost? And I think it was lost before the Akiras hit the board. Ultimately, the Akira was the nail in the coffin. Trasgo's Akira did, manifest the win for them. But at this point, like, I'm of the opinion that, yes, Claws has a higher quality set of Phobies from this turn through the next several turns, but Panic Point's obviously in favor of Trasgo. Positioning is going to favor Trasgo because it's going to force Claws to try and commit into something. If you notice, Claws is still, like, they were adding Phobies to the board. They have 8. Trasgo doesn't have to do anything here. That's why they were able to build up 16 keys, because they were under no pressure. They have this early Panic Point advantage. They managed to maintain the 1 key advantage, because they're going to win this trading war here. And then they have 21 keys available, and Claws doesn't even... like, they only have 14 keys total, let alone available. But this turn, both players... well, not both players. Claws had to wait a turn, and then kind of just went for it, because they needed to. They were out of keys. Well, they have 5, but they're going to be out of keys shortly. They had no way to claim... because they put the Noxious on the board, if you recall. They have no way to claim this back without putting something, quote-unquote, significant on the board. There's no world in which Trasgo's ever going to allow, like, something to get yoinked into the pit and auto-die, and then everything else is exposed. It's all just going to end poorly. From this position, and I guess what sums this up, is all Trasgo had to do to win was not lose, which sounds like a John Maddenism. But there's a difference between playing the game to win and playing the game to not lose. Generally, when you play the game to not lose, you're playing so safely that it actually can result in a loss because you're just not capitalizing on opportunities. Here, partially because of Akira, but also due to the early game plays, Claws had to aggressively invade. They had to do something. And the terrain of the map combined with multiple one-movers means you're just not going to connect with Trasgo's stuff. Certainly not in a meaningful capacity. And if that's true, you're behind. You're going to lose more ground when you invade to try and flip the tables. And then you just lose from there. It ends up getting pretty close towards the end, but it absolutely felt like at the time of Trasgo's Akira pull that it was just the numbers were not going to be in favor of Claws. Clearly, Blinky was too powerful. It's the stare down. It's just too intimidating. It is too intimidating. Let's take a look at this one. We got a step right up game. We were looking at Claws in the previous one. Claws ended up going down, but Claws comes out on top in this step right up game. So let's see what happens. There were a number of options on Claws' profile that we could have chosen, so I kind of went for this one. We'll see what happens here. Now we're getting some fairly standard openings from both players. Notably, Claws is delaying the Gravedigger, but I can understand it. You get the corn online, get it in there much more quickly. This, of course, allows Esotillan to get a 2-0 panic point advantage early on. I'm really dehydrated, chat. I might have to take another break and go get some water. Be able to make it through another 2 games or so. Like it said in the stream title, I'm probably going to be a short one tonight. We, of course, have Fright Night next week. Yeah, hydrate. I can't. I literally have no water down here. I gotta go get it. Stabby. So this is interesting. Claws is defiantly not adding a Gravedigger to the team. They are, however, adding a bunch of one-movers, including the 2 early game turrets. Bowmangles and Stabby. Step Right Up is kind of an interesting map to me. And Gonzo. I'm noticing a pattern in the Claws games, but... Step Right Up is interesting. It does kind of feel like one of those maps where, yeah, you're obligated to get Gravedigger, but Claws here is making a case to not do it. However, this could be, of course, an argument in favor of Esotillan choosing the incorrect Phobies. We are getting an aggressive push here, but it would be incredibly challenging for Esotillan to actually retaliate here. Now, I'm a little surprised that Gonzo did not go here. The reason for that is I would expect the corn to probably die unless Esotillan chooses to just back off. If the Gonzo's up here and then, you know, they kill this, you can bring, well, you could bring the Gravedigger to body block and then send the Cowbell to body block, meaning that the damaged Ginsting that's sitting here is protected, so you can't necessarily just plow through it with a juiced up whatever with the Gonzo. Which may be why Claws elected to come down here, give a little bit more flexibility, because I anticipate that this Ginsting's not even going to stay here. Yep. There goes the corn. Ooh, the Cowbell's just going to body block here. This does allow for Esotillan to retaliate on the follow-up turn if Claws decides to stay. Oh, all right. Yeah, this is kind of what I was describing earlier. Because Esotillan chose not to body block for the Jin Sting, it just dies. And this exchange means it's Hematic Jin Sting for 3 keys. I think most people take that. Actually get a Metabot to save the life of Bo Mangles, and now all of a sudden it's triple turrets, essentially, with these two and Gonzo backing it up, plus a healer versus 5 keys and what's on the board. Now, our orange player does, besides break this block, manage to push out a little bit, but this is not going to be long-lived. So, I'm a big fan of Innoculus on virtually every map and just about every situation, but here you don't have a great push set up as the orange player. So, clearly, the cowbell's going to die, right? It's just not... It's not doing anything. It's going to die. Probably Gonzo kills it, and then Bo moves up. Or maybe Gonzo, Bo, and then you slide both up. That leaves what? This Innoculus trying to charge in with no meat shield when you have this that can collapse from the north and these two. Still 7 keys for Claws. There's only 4 for Esotillan. This kind of feels like a combination of the Daisy and Innoculus should have been something else. Or maybe the Innoculus just comes out earlier because Innoculus, the 3 range, is fairly successful into, well, 1-movers, right? Especially these turrets here. You can poke them, whittle them down, and then eventually take them out. Here, similar to what we saw in the last game, one of our players is being forced to commit, and the other one is not. There is a little bit of a dangerous dance going on because you do have to try and ensure that you don't get picked apart by the Innoculus. However, the final key is getting invested by Claws into Hevo 2.0. Since you already have the healer on the board, I can definitely understand this. All of these Phobies are fairly tanky. Arguably Gonzo and, of course, Metabot are the least tanky. But this means that they can go in, soak some hits, get more value out of this, and eventually you just Gonzo them into oblivion. Eventually, you will catch them, and they're just going to go, oops, I died. Now, notably, our orange player maxed out on 5 Phobies with Thunder Rocks. That does provide a little bit of a tank to spearhead the potential invasion to try and take some of this stuff down. But right now, Claws can play the patient game. Claws can be very patient here. Oh, wow. I did not see that coming. So Claws aggressively positions the Gonzo. Only 12, like the Gonzo's just dead. So this has to be bait. There's no world in which Claws did not see a trap coming. This had to be intentional. So Corn is not quite dead. Close, but not quite. The Boop looks like it's going to preserve... No, the Bo Mangles is dead too. Or Bo should be dead. Huh. I could have sworn it said Claws 1 when they zoned in. Or when I zoned in. Okay, this is fair. If the Daisy was still around, this makes more sense now. I was about to say, like, how do they win? But they actually had enough damage to take down the Daisy there. Big old tanky Evo. This was very well played by Claws. The calculations on the health remaining had to have been pretty, like, they knew exactly this was going to survive. The chain play into the Metabot kill. Oh, baby. You don't see those every day. You do not see those every day. Now, admittedly, there's not a whole lot left to these remaining Phobies. Wait. Oh, okay. I thought they were going to walk on the trap. Oh. Ow, the turntable. This is an interesting race at this point. Quad panic point advantage, and that heart is going to melt. Although realistically, I think the Gravedigger just dies. Boop, got him. The game will crash momentarily because I didn't let it play out on that turn. In fact, it would probably be faster just to reload into the game. So what I want to call out about this game is that Step Right Up, as mentioned earlier, is commonly a Gravedigger map. It's very easy to see why you want to break the obstacles, free up space on your turn, or your side of the board, rather, for your team. However, I think that the biggest things here are this Ginsting kill, which I don't understand why it happened. Like, it didn't need to happen. And as a result, the tempo loss and then the Phobie selection from our orange player, I think, ultimately spelled their demise. Claws got that big pick, and then you're not really putting Phobies on the board in the time window that you need it to be in order to reclaim things. Later on, we see the Daisy go down thanks to the Metabot just swinging in and out. Obviously, the Hevo was already where it needed to be. But it seemed like there were multiple, and this is what happens at higher levels, multiple seemingly innocuous mistakes that compounded over the course of the game and ultimately led to a loss where it could have been a win. Very well played by both players. GG. We'll take a peek at this one. We're trying to showcase new maps when possible. And this is new as new can get. This is brought in this week's rotation, although last week's by the time this video goes up. This is a very interesting map. Starting off with, I guess, the safe snowball opener. Definitely makes sense here. Getting a lot of 1 keys out of our orange player. This map feels very open. I don't know that it actually is, but, like, these areas by the vaults give it the illusion of, like, there's a lot of space to move around. This doesn't seem to be a very heart rush-y map. I still don't know what to do as player 2 on this one. Your guess is as good as mine. I haven't looked at this map at all. This is literally the first time I'm looking at it. There's just no way as player 2 to stop player 1 from claiming this early advantage, right? There certainly doesn't seem to be a safe way to do it, if there is one. And because of that, like, this cat and this Contortio are going to be able to walk in and out with impunity. That's my problem. I wonder if the answer... This is just me thinking out loud. Like, if you assume they're going to get an early advantage, like, how do you leverage that? Do you just go with other one-movers, you know, like 3 Rangers and stuff, and march your way across the map? They come out swinging with a bunch of small keys, and then you pick them apart? I don't know if that's really feasible. Because, like, you run out of things after Innocuous and maybe a Tractor. But yeah, this is a lot of early pressure. I mean, this is a 9,400 health heart. Already over 3k damage. That adds up real quick. Our orange player is doing... They're making some significant efforts to try and preserve this middle position. The Quagmire across the top should be safe. 2 hits from Stabby, 1 hit from Gravedigger, 1 hit from Cowbell. I mean, one of them could be a Morty, I guess, but that Quagmire should live. And here's the thing, Cat takes here, Cowbell takes here, and all of a sudden, 3-2 panic points, and Blue has not really... Uh-oh, there's Boss. Blue hasn't really given up a lot in the way of board position, right? There wasn't really an enormous sacrifice here. Can't even cook the cat. Cat's gonna live through that, I think. Actually, no, are there 2 layers of fire right now? I think there's 2 layers. That cat might be dead. Smiley in order to protect the team. Nope, the cat lives. That's bad news, Bears. That is bad news, Bears. This went from bad to worse for her. Oh, no. Ooh. Yeah, that's when the rest of your team just stares at Smiley in silence. Like, buddy, you had one job. One job. These are some cute plays to get around the limitations here. But at the end of the day, there are some limitations here. And of course, this entire time, pressure is still being applied to orange player's heart. They are able to push out a little bit here, but... Oh no, that Quagmire is in decent shape. It's not in terrible shape. Gravedigger does go down, so no more shenanigans for our blue player. This has got to be a dead Quagmire, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, man, this is looking rough going second. Admittedly, there's still over 4,100 health on this heart until end of turn, but... you still have a fair amount of health left. This map clearly going second, assuming an aggressive opener from player 1, necessitates that you play the control deck and then you try and flip the tables. But looks a little difficult early on. Nine keys to 7 remaining. Nine keys to 7. The boss is still live. This Smiley is doing almost literally nothing. So what I'm thinking, chat, is I want to look at this map after this game. Maybe in lieu of another review, just to get a better peek at it. Because I have some thoughts on the opener, but I need to kind of draw it up to see. Which means I need to pull this up. Sorry, I need to get my fake teleprompter up. Telestrator. Not a teleprompter. So we got Evo 2.0, which, I mean, I guess I see it, but I don't think this is really the answer. And I think if you're going to use Evo here, you need to come in from the top and push down. That way you can force them into the abyss. Like, get them in between the Evo and the abyss tiles. Because otherwise, you're going to... I mean, yes, you get some nice boops, but they're not going to be lethal boops. Alright, we're dying slower now as orange player. Takedown on the snowball. Alright, electing to disease the Jin Sting. So our orange player has accepted they can't fight their way out of this directly into blue player's Phobies, so they need to try and heart push. 7,700, oh boy, that's a lot of health. And don't get me wrong, this represents a lot of damage, but that's a lot of health to chew through, even if they're distracted by the Smiley. Even with the Smiley distraction. Yeah, I think I have a theory worked out for the opener as player 2 on this map, but like I said, I want to draw it up to try and, for lack of a better way to put it, put my thoughts to paper, but I don't think... I don't know, until I see it, I can't quite visualize it yet. As far as this particular game goes, I think the game was over with the "you're fired" that happened up here. It resulted in way too much tempo loss for our orange player. And obviously that Smiley did, like, nothing. Smiley is a tough sell for me as a anti-boss if you aren't going to Death Ball. Which was the initial attempt, but then the Gravedigger locked you out and caused all kinds of weird things to happen. I don't know what the hell the Stabby's doing. I guess guarding the top. I don't know. Huh. Okay. Chad, I wonder if... How much would it change the game if Terraform obstacles could just straight up not be hit by anything but basic attacks? So you currently can't hit it with a Blom. Beauty, Goon, Puff. But you can hit it with your Fired. This would leave things like Hevo 3.0 as still being able to really abuse Gravedigger. But it would truncate a little bit of Boss's power. I don't know if it matters that much. I mean, it clearly matters for Boss, but I don't know if that's a beneficial overall change for the game. I'm not sure. But anyway, this one is over. Our blue player takes it. You can kind of see why. Obviously, a concession came in. Let's take a look at this map. No Jin Sting and Erratic shenanigans. Erratic would still work under my suggestion. Jin Sting would not. At least not the ability. Unless it was hard-coded that chains wouldn't work, which was not what I was intending, but... Because Erratic's is just a regular attack. Alright. So, Phasmophobia. How do you play this as player 2? My initial thought is player 1's going to run Snowball... And then, is it 1, 2, 3, 4 for a 1 key? The 1 key can immediately hit here. I mean, they could be here as well, but... So this kind of throws what I was... This is why I wanted to draw it up so that I could see it. Because what I was thinking is, if you assume you concede the center point to Snowball, which realistically there's no reason that that's not happening, they can either go here or they can go here. So you need to force them into one and not the other so they don't get both. But there's no way to stop a 1 key that's positioned here, which I know is very difficult to see up at the top of the map there. But there's no way to stop a 1 key that's next to that panic point. And because there's going to be a 1 key there, anything you send here is toast. They could even pop out a Gravedigger and open it up, which I don't think they would. But anything you send there can, of course, like a Murder Wing could sit here and shell it in combination with the 1 key means anything cheap that goes there is toast. I think you need to force them into trying to take this triangle. You take these, or try to control these, then you rotate as player 2 under and up. So that way, yes, they have a panic point advantage throughout this, but it's a 1-0 panic point advantage, essentially. In the last game we observed, there were multiple turns where our blue player had, like, all of this. And it was just way too much pressure here. And our orange player was stuck in a bad spot. So how do you do that? Well, you could Gravedigger to here, break, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4. You send the 1 key. They probably pop out Murder Wing, Meatball, hit it, send in the 1 key. Snowball is here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. They can't quite cap this right away. So if you went Gravedigger, 1 key, that's 4 keys, you have 2 remaining, and then you send something here. Something that goes here then gets sent to the bottom. is 1, 2, 3, 4. Their 1 key caps a side point on turn 2, though. No, not if they send it to the top. I mean, they might send it there instead. So what you're saying is you're seeing snowball to here, and then their 1 key goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, and is sitting down here instead of up here. Because if they don't send something to the top, then I think you can Gravedigger, cap this, and then start that rotation, like I was saying, and you do this to try and keep them occupied. To at least buy some time, so that you're not under pressure from multiple fronts, the panic points and the board position, and you're trying to fight too many battles. Like, you're in a losing board position because you're down panic points, but you're not down like 4-1. It's 3-2. If this guy gets sent down here, that is. Like I said, then their snowball goes here. You will have control of this. You will have control of this. And then hopefully you can either swing down here or swing into here. So what does turn 2 look like? If we assume that player 1 went snowball, 1 key. You go Gravedigger, 1 key. Cassowary? So then they go snowball, 1 key, bring something here to threaten. Either here or, like, here. Something. If your 1 key lives, great. I'm going to assume that they put in some effort and kill it. How they do that, I'm not sure, because... I mean, I guess they get, like, Murder Wing Droney. Need snowball to get the side point first turn if you want it right away. Oh, yeah. If you wanted to, like, cap the side point on turn 1, yes. So, if this happens, you have snowball here. You don't want to be here or here with the cassowary. So you could put it here, assuming we send cassowary to this point. Or no, this caps it on turn 2. Hold on. So player 2, turn 2. You have this point. You have a cassowary here. This is at the start of the turn. You need the cassowary to go here to cap it. You could alternatively, because you have a Gravedigger here, you could alternatively send the cassowary to, like, here or here. Send a snowball here. Gravedigger kind of mills about because he can't really do anything due to being melee. Because they probably have a Gin Sting or something here to be able to threaten this point. Or the north. Hopefully your 1 key lives and you can retreat. So that leaves you with Gravedigger, 1 key, cassowary, snowball, maybe bank 2 keys. We're still very much in the phase of the game of not losing, as opposed to trying to implement a game plan and win. We're very much in the vein of trying to not lose by a million. What alternative do you have? Because you could send your snowball here on 1, and it's just going to get eaten alive. Because they'll kill it with a combination of snowball and, like, Murder Wing or something, so you can't do that. On 1, you can't reach down here with a snowball, and if you do, it's just going to, like, they're going to go 1, 2, 3. They'll probably fireball you, but they might just take the point and then trade fireballs later. This one is kind of rough. But we also felt that way about Phobos, and Phobos, there's a lot of people who swear by it going second. I think you do need, as player 2, I think this obstacle has to go on turn 1. And then this way you have a straight run with 1 keys to at least force your opponent to honor it. Or you'll be able to cap this top point whenever you want. And then as long as you can control these two, you're not losing by a ton. Which gives you time, especially on a big map, to get back in the game. Because your opponent is expending a lot of keys. You know, they burnt all of them on 1 to cap this point and send the 1 key. Then they possibly invested in killing this 1 key, or they invested more into sending forces here. They could just pass, but odds are they're putting something on the board. So if the first 2 turns, they're not banking. If it's possible for you as player 2 to go Gravedigger, 1 key, that's 4. Snowball on 2. And then just try and solidify this, like I was saying. I don't know, like I said, it feels too defensive, but I'm not sure here. Because on paper, my idea is if you can shore up those 2 points while banking a little bit, you can then try and go over the top and bring out something big to just, like, completely pummel them, hopefully. Like, you play your own boss, you play your own Hevo 3.0, you play your own whatever. And because you get first mover's advantage in that state, your opponent, with, again, a lot of assumptions being made, can't respond with their own big dummy immediately. So they have to take a turn off, thereby giving you some tempo back so that you can then try and reclaim parts of the board. I send Snowball and a key going down as second to retake the bottom. On turn 1, I mean, you can certainly try and make a play for the bottom. Because you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 1 key ends up here, like we were saying. Yeah, it's second player, but on what turn? So that means that their Snowball is taking this. Their 1 key is taking this. They could break this on their own and then send a 1 key in. I feel like trying to make a play for the bottom actually puts you in a worse position. That's kind of what we saw in the game we just watched. It ultimately resulted in a Snowball down here, just getting fireballed for free. And then they couldn't hold the bottom. Because they're, like, just logically, right? Your opponent going first obviously has first mover's advantage coming down here, right? And this is a long run to get down here. So any reinforcements are delayed. So if your opponent gets to send reinforcements first, they're going to get there first. That's why I think making a play for these up here is probably better initially. And then try and push out from there. I mean, I'm not saying completely ignore the bottom, and even what I was saying earlier, to try and swing in here at some point to then just make this push-pull happen. until you're ready to actually fight over this. I'm trying to think what high-end phobie that costs like 6 to 8 is good enough to control this triangle. Because ideally, the idea of trying to hold the top and pocket panic point is that you can set up this triangle between these 3 points. And because your opponent is kind of spread out through the board, or they're spread out just enough, not necessarily like they're scattered all over the place. But if they're spread out enough and you're not losing by a ton, like I said, if they're committing phobies to the board, they're not banking. So you have the opportunity to bank to something large enough that can bully them out of this position, hypothetically. Other than boss, what are you controlling this area with? Maybe a boop? Like the Hevo 2.0 that came out in the game we watched, I wanted to see it come down this way, not come up this way. Or really, I think it came through here. The problem with coming through here is, like, you're going to be pushing your opponent back towards their vault, which doesn't help you with the boops. You want to be coming in through the top or through here and pin them here. So that way when you boop them, there's the potential that they end up in one of these. I mean, I'm open to suggestions too, Chad. I'm not really sure. I have yet to play on this map. If we were to even try and make this work, like I said, aside from boss, thing to remember is that once we're a few turns in, player 1 is Klepto, Inoculus, and friends controlling all the space in the middle because they had panic points the whole time. That's why I'm thinking boss is arguably the answer. Klepto is a more difficult ask. But like Inoculus, we saw that what player 1 did to player 2 is they were able to cook the Inoculus and then push it out of the game for a while. Are you going to be able to do that to Klepto? I don't know. This is probably a goon map. It's probably a goon map because you could definitely set up some weird lines where your opponent's not expecting it. I feel like I want to say something like Zappy, maybe not literally Zappy, but the reason why is if you have something tanky enough that can just kind of waddle in there, maybe you can tank their existing forces. I would like to say Oopsie Baby, but I think it's going to take too long. Because Oopsie Baby's so slow, it gives them time to react. Obviously, you get another Blom effect. Brony. There are spas. There is a spa, not spas plural. I mean, this could do it. Getting to 9, I think, is going to be a little difficult. I think you're more looking at 6s and 7s. If you go with this plan, that is. Otherwise, is it like... Do you put an early spider on the board? Early-ish spider and try and So if you went with, say, a spider, you can zone them to a degree and then buy some time that way. They have to respect the spider even early in the game, I think. Certainly with stuff such as Snowball, where it's just like, okay, I can kill that pretty trivially if I get to yoink it. This also is not a liability later on in the game. I don't think one movers as player 2 is going to be the answer. The only time I would think a one mover would work is you break the top obstacle and then you use the one mover to help control that point. But it's basically going to be parked there. I could see this being used to control the center. So, like, you cap the center and then trap it up and try and lock them down that way, or at least slow them down that way. Maybe your own early inoculus slash attractor. I know I was saying no one movers, but since they're 3 range, they're effectively 2 movers. Sort of. Like, maybe that can help. I don't think there's any effective way to honey bear this map. I mean, you could honey bear by, like, just puking on the center panic point to turn it off, and then it's 2-2, just to buy you time and elongate the game, but I don't think that's going to end very well. Part of me wants to say Creepy Devil, because then you could try and snipe something. The map is enormous, you could be anywhere. But I'm not super excited about that prospect. I'm not sure yet, chat. This one's not jumping out to me immediately. I get the sense we're going to see a lot of people put Gesundheit up here, and I just don't like that idea. It's fine if you already control it, but if you don't, it's not doing anything. Had an opponent use Creepy Devil there? I literally forgot it was there. That could be a problem. That's a nasty surprise. What if you... I have to switch back to the Telestrator. So, this spot, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can put a an inoculus here and cover these 2 points. So what if you went like inoculus on one key to here, and then another 1 key, and then tried to zone, like, maybe not zone, but pick off anything that went in there, you still end up like, I feel like they can just walk away from a lot of things and their guys live because you'll only get like one hit. But you might be able to walk the Innocuous up. Probably not. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go 1, 2, 3, shoot at something in one of these. That something lives, walks away. You send in your 1 key. They kill it and then follow it up. I mean, that does still leave you with an Innocuous there. But you're going to have to throw more keys after it. I'm going to have to think about this one, chat. I'm going to have to think about this one. I feel like the answer is be the control deck, use your life total as a resource, drag the game out so that you can actually get something bigger, flip tempo that way, and take over the game. Now, admittedly, your opponent will have time to respond, so they could end up putting their own big idiot on the board. But at least that stabilizes it in your favor. I think. I'm not sure, chat. This one's a weird one. This definitely has Phobos vibes to me. Now, we've seen a lot of people end up winning going second on Phobos. You'll have to maximize the +2 keys to something big and nasty. Yeah, that's why I hate to say it, but I think like boss is the answer here, right? Boss is the thing that is, it's big enough, it's an 8 key, that also can, like, it's only 1 key, but you're not making as much investment for Evo or Akira. And it also represents an enormous enough threat that your opponent they have to respect it, and as a result, when they respect it, they're going to be left in a weaker configuration such that they can't just, oh, surprise, like, here's my concave, and then I just collapse on you from all sides. Because of the boss, they're going to have to spread out a little bit more, or be vulnerable to just getting annihilated. And they're probably not going to be able to jump on boss and kill it outright. It's going to be very challenging, meaning boss hits a you're fired and walks away. I'm sure that's not the only phobie that can do this, but that's the one that leaps to mind immediately. I don't know. I'm not sure, chat. There's some things to be thought about for this one. There's a little bit of planning and strategery, if you will, that has to be done. We'll have to see. But for tonight, as I was saying earlier, I'm tired. We're going to cut it a little bit short. We'll be back tomorrow for some variety. And next week, we'll be back with some Fright Night. So if you're interested in that, make sure you stay tuned for the announcements. But hit up the Random's Thoughts Discord. That's where you'll hear about Fright Night and other events going on first. So, like I said, chat, that's going to do it. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Black Lives Matter.